Welcome to The Reflective Leader. I'm Tony Marchese, and I am joined by Doug Walters.
Good afternoon.
Good to be back, Doug. It's always fun to take some time out of our busy schedules to talk about leadership.
It is, and glad to be here today.
I just wanted to, as we get started today, talk just for a moment about the reason why we do this program. We interact with people of all sorts in our personal and professional lives, and one of the things that always seems to come up, is the issue of leadership.
Right.
And we call this the reflective leader because we really believe strongly that effective leadership isn't just something that you learn how to do from a book, that there's an importance of understanding who you are and why you're here and what are some of the things or triggers that maybe cause us to do the certain things that we do.
Right.
And so we really think that being a reflective leader is important.
Absolutely. And we've been in many situations over the years, Tony, in which we find ourselves perplexed by the people maybe that are around us, both from a positive and a potentially negative standpoint. And one of the things that I think we've learned, and I've got a few more years on you, and that is to make sure that you step back from any one given situation in which decisions are going to be made and reflect on the possibilities one way or the other. So therefore, we practice, I think, very well the concept of reflective leadership.
Well, with that in mind, I think that we should start today off with a poem.
Oh, good.
I don't think that we've
You're
ever...
poetic, that
I
would
am.
work. Yeah, that would be
I don't think we've
okay.
ever done this, but this is a poem called Sweet Darkness by a poet. He's a contemporary poet. His name is David White.
Right.
And this is his poem. He says, "When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision is gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your womb tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you." And
Powerful, isn't that?
I really think it is. And I think that it sets the stage nicely for our conversation today about discovering your personal owner's manual.
Personal owner's manual. Okay, are we talking about a car here?
Well, not exactly, but I don't want to rule that out completely because its
okay.
origin it comes from a kind of a strange set of circumstances, which we'll talk about in a little while. But one of the things I want us to do is to talk about some guiding assumptions.
Okay.
I think that we all have assumptions that direct our behavior, and I think that for our conversation today, I think it's important to lay some of those out. One of the assumptions is that as educated people, we're custodians of disciplines. Doug, I know that you spent a great deal of time studying anthropology and the social sciences. There are a set of assumptions, guiding assumptions, or key ideas that are sort of inherent within that discipline. It's a certain type of lens through which you view the world around you.
Right. I think that we all have a set of lens, and these lenses may vary based upon experience, time, education, but the older I have become, Tony, one of the things that I realize is that wisdom does have its roots in age because you go through a variety of experiences that allow you to begin to look at the lenses of being 50 years old versus 60 years old, as opposed to the very early years that I started teaching as a 20 or 21 or 22-year-old. And that perspective those lenses have changed greatly.
Sure. Well, we both have studied leadership
Right.
formally and certainly try to practice it on a daily basis. And leadership, the study of organizational leadership, also has some assumptions. And at least these are going to be ours
Okay.
for today. one of the things, and I think you'd agree with me, is that leadership is very messy. Leadership is messy. And I think that leadership is hard to be, it's hard to be very prescriptive when talking about leadership, and a lot of people do this. You know, I get frustrated when I go into a bookstore, and you know, you go in and maybe the business section usually, and there are all kinds of books that are, you know, how-to books.
Right.
You know, this is how you become a successful leader. These are the 5 things you need to know to do X. And you know, while I certainly applaud, you know, an individual's desire to share great ideas, you know, with the masses, I mean, I hope that's what we're doing today. At the same time, I think that there's this idea of, look at what I did. Now, do exactly the same as what I did, and success will be replicated in you. And as I said, you know, leadership is very messy. Leadership is very complex. And it's a dialectic between individuals and circumstances and context and time and space. And I think leadership effectiveness is the proper alignment of all that stuff, of people, of knowledge, of skills, of strategy, of situations. There's a lot going on there. And it's not so easily replicated, I don't think.
I would say amen to that, because I know that in the various roles that I have played throughout my adult life in particular, and professional part of my adult life, is that I have learned by making a lot of mistakes that what may work in any given situation, and I'm not talking necessarily about situational leadership, even though that's a part of it, but it is taking into consideration the audience. There have been a number of times I think in our work where we've been thrown into a new setting where the language, the vocabulary, the backgrounds of the individuals with whom we're involved is quite different from maybe our past experience. And so you have to sort of take a step back, and I think one of the signs of a sanguine leader is her or his ability to say, hey, you know, let's hold on for a second, let me step back and let me reflect, if you may, and look at the possibilities or the variations that I now have to take into consideration as we move forward in working with either an individual or a team of individuals, or in some cases where we've dealt with whole organizations, and figuring out how to do that. And you just can't go, it's not, you sure as, it goes back to what you said a few moments ago. That's very messy, because many times we have what I would call leaders are sort of like bulls in a china shop, so to speak. You know, they're so aggressive, so big, so all, you know, omnipresent that, you know, they knock all the fine china that's in the room and smash it to smithereens. And not only do you have to pick up the pieces, but you got to go out and find new china. And we know in today's world with organizations, and no matter what type of organization, your best resources are your human capital.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've established it's a messy thing,
yes.
And there's not a one-size-fits-all approach or intervention that works in all organizations. And so while those books that we find, you know, may be valuable for enrichment, they're not necessarily effective as a blueprint to use in all places. Another assumption that I know you and I both believe is very important is that self-awareness is intimately connected to positive leadership impact. It goes back to you know, the old oracle at Delphi, the proclamation that one should know thyself. Absolutely.
Right.
And David White, who we referred to earlier, he says this. He says, one of the keys to any possible happiness in work must be the little self-knowledge it takes to know what we desire in life, how we are made, and how we belong to the rest of the world. And while he wasn't necessarily addressing the concept of leadership, you know, directly here,
right.
I think that has a lot of relevance to our conversation today as we move into this idea of a personal owner's manual. Here's another assumption that I'd like to throw out there. And this is something you and I talk about a lot. Some of the greatest casualties in organizations, the casualties may be self-inflicted or they may be externally inflicted. They are due to a disassociation between baggage or personal liabilities and behavior. Hurting people hurt others. And we've mentioned this before on our program. You know, when you go into an organization, and you know, we're observers, we both are, and we often, you know, see things. We watch for the subtleties, we watch for patterns, we watch for, you know, repetitious behaviors. And one of the things that we often find is that some of the most complex, seemingly complex situations, you know, where there's conflict present, when you really begin peeling off the layers, you may find that the origin of that conflict may reside in an individual who at 7 years old was picked on the playground.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And a lot of times, you know, we have, you know, that pain, you know, as a child, you know, from that circumstance, whatever it might be. It could be an abusive, you know, situation at home or at school, but we repress that. We don't really deal with that maybe the way that we need to. We don't know any better.
Right.
And many years later, after we've had, you know, many successes, or we may have, you know, achieved, you know, several academic degrees, you know, earned those types of things, that stuff still manifests. It still festers.